Thank you. So hi everyone, my name is Caroline Bouchard. I'm Service Navigator for Developmental Services Ontario, DSO. We are under the umbrella of SCS, but our program is provincial and our mandate is a bit different, so we wanted to come and explain both today. So we are the entry point for all MCCSS funded services for adults with a developmental disability, intellectual disability. So throughout the province, there are 9 DSOs. We cover the whole of the eastern region. And we take care of all the new applications, eligibility, all the intakes, and we refer out to agencies in the region that provide services. So to have access to adult services paid by the province, it has to go through us. What type of services do we refer to? There's 4 categories. The first one is community participation. So the main one people are interested in is passport funding. It's a budget managed by March of Dimes. And I think it's somewhat similar to SSAH, right? It's a reimbursement program to participate in activities, hire a support worker, provide respite to families, transportation to activities, technologies, there's a list. Everybody who's eligible for DSO gets referred to March of Dimes and receives passport. Community participation also includes MCCSS funded day programs, employment supports, vocational supports, residential services or group home, host family, supported independent living, respite, and we refer to specialized services. So that includes adult case management, that service coordination support for Ottawa. In other regions, there's other agencies that provide that service. Behavior management, dual diagnosis counseling, occupational therapy and speech therapy is not offered in Ottawa, is offered in some other regions, now not offered in Ottawa. We like people to say that they want this service, so then we can tell the government that people want it. So what do we do at DSO? So we take care of all the intakes. So we register people, make sure they're eligible for services, and then we provide service navigation. That's my role. We are a team of 5 people, and we answer all the questions about eligibility, about community options, services. So if people have questions, they can call us. We are always available on the phone to answer questions, whether it's regarding our services or even City of Ottawa services at large. If people have questions, they can always call us, and we're available throughout, beginning from age 16 on to answer questions. And then we have a team of assessors. Once someone is confirmed eligible, once they do turn 17 and a half, an assessor will contact them and book the assessment meetings. The goal of that is to make sure we know who the person is and what their support needs are to then connect them with community services. Once the assessment is done, we refer out to services. And this is an important piece, the matching and linking. So how it works, there's 2 ways to have access to services. The first one is direct referrals to specialized services such as case management, behavior management. The other one is a matching and linking process. So for a day program, group homes, all residential services and all community participation, we create what we call the application package. That's the information we collect while we do the assessment. And then we match people to available services. So when any agencies that provide those services have a spot, a vacancy, they let us know, and then we match the best person for that spot based on what's offered, what the person needs, and priority. So how do we apply? So anybody who's 16 can start applying. Yeah, the website is here. So it's scsonline.ca. You go to intake, services, intake, application, DSOER is right under the children's case management application form. There's an application form. We need, let me just see, I'll skip to the next one. Okay, So to make sure someone is eligible, we'll need a proof that they live in Ontario. So a valid health card is the easiest. There's other documents that are accepted. We need a proof of age, and we need the most recent psychological assessment report signed by a psychologist that demonstrates significant limitations in cognitive functioning and adaptive functioning that started before the age of 18 and most likely will continue throughout life. So that's the eligibility criteria. If you do not have all of these, you can start the application. Sometimes that's why we want to start at 16. It can take some time to piece all the paperwork together and all the documents. If someone does not have any documentation, you call us and we can have a conversation as well. It's not the end of the road if you don't have any documentation. So our team at Service Navigation, we provide information. We refer to the Passport program. We do all the updates throughout life. So anytime we do the first intake, and then when things change with regards to the person or with regards to their caregiver, we do all the updates. We keep the centralized file of the person throughout life and then refer out. So what's the assessment? So when youth is 17 and a half, we contact the family to book the DSO assessment. The assessors are trained. It's a very formalized, certified process. The assessors go for intensive training, and they're trained to make sure that everybody gets the same process, so that all the files are equivalent, so we can make sure that the people who need the services the most gets the services first. So there's 2 meetings with the DSO assessor, with the person and with people who know them well. Because of the pandemic, sometimes it's done virtually now. It can then be done in person, virtual. It's too long meeting. So the first one is called the ADSS. The goal is to learn the person's likes and dislikes and strengths, who they are, what they want. And then the second meeting is called the SIS, Support Intensity Scale. The goal is to know someone's level of support they need in every area of their lives. The goal of that is to make sure we connect them with the right services. And then once it's all done, we create, here it says assessor summary report, the application package, and that's going to be their file that gets sent to agency when we do refer out. And then when the assessment is done, it's all entered in our database. That creates a priority score, and that's what is used for matching and linking with services. Oh, there we go. I explained it. Yeah. So matching and linking is very different from direct referrals. We don't directly refer to group homes. We don't directly refer to day programs. Is when group homes or day programs, for example, have vacancies, have the space available. They let DSO know, they declare the vacancy, and then we look in the database who's waiting for a similar service, and then we match people based on priority. And then our team is always there to answer any questions. We have a phone number, we have an email address. We like to accompany people. It's not just a one-time thing. People call us to register, and then people call us after the assessment is finished because it's a very overwhelming process and they have more questions. We're always happy to answer questions. Some people call every 3 months for a few years. That's awesome. We like to have those conversations because there's a lot of information, and it's all new services and this whole new process. So that's our phone number and that's our address to contact us.
I just have a quick question.
Yes.
Regarding the psychological assessment that you mentioned a few slides ago, does it matter at what period the child got the psychological assessment? So if they have it from when they were a baby, can that still be used, or do they have to get a new one?
No, we need the most recent available one. If it has what we need, we can accept that.
Okay, so regardless of
If it does not have what we need, then we can have that conversation to see what would be the next step. But if the assessment was done when someone was 3 or 2.5, and we do have what we need in there to confirm they have significant limitations in cognitive functioning and adaptive functioning, then that's enough, yes.
Hi, Gavin. Really nice to meet you. Just a couple questions. One, just following up on Lillian's. Whenever I think of these assessments, I think of like, okay, well, how long's the wait for it? And does this, like, are we gonna be waiting for years to get it? Or do you have to, for it to be done on time, do you have to pay out of pocket?
For the psychological
Yeah.
assessment,
Yeah,
so DSO does not cover most of the psychological
so that's an
assessment.
out of pocket thing.
If someone has never had one done, and they turn 18, we ask families to have one done at their cost. If the cost is very prohibitive and then we can have that conversation also to see case by case what can be done. There are options, but it's always individual. We like to speak to each family to know sort of what the options are. Most people send us a report from CHEO or from the school board. That's usually the two places we get. If the person's still in school, I think it's an awesome idea to contact the school psychologist or to try to get their support. I think it's an awesome idea to do it now. So that by the time
Say that only count assessments is that there can be a very long.
Yes.
Okay, right.
But then we've been in touch with some school boards to try to facilitate the process. I do know that some school boards psychologists will sort of look at all of the documentation and write a support letter. Sometimes that works. We need to have confirmation from a psychologist that there are significant limitations in adaptive and cognitive functioning. So a psychological assessment report is the standard way, but everybody's situation is so different. So it's always good to connect when the person is 16 to discuss sort of specific situations.
Hey, I don't want to monopolize it.
No, sure.
But another, just, you mentioned passport.
Yes.
I might have missed it, but I didn't hear a reference to ODSP. Are those the same thing? Are they different?
No, completely different. There is a link between both. So ODSP is through Employment Ontario. We are through MCCSS. Passport program is it could be minimum 5,500 a year to participate in activities, hire a support worker, technology and transportation to those activities. So it's a complement. It's not, ODSP is a monthly benefit that the person will receive, right? So someone who's eligible for DSO gets a letter. It's called the eligibility letter. They can take that and go to ODSP with it. And that facilitates the process a lot. So for ODSP, I can't confirm any of ODSP's information, but there's a financial need criteria and there's a disability criteria. The disability criteria is met with the letter from DSO. So it's always good to go to DSO first and then take the letter from DSO and then apply for ODSP with that.
I promise this is the last question. You mentioned that March of Dimes administers this.
Yes.
So when I think, like, I just remember looking at it for our son pretty early on. And the income threshold is pretty bad for family income to qualify for any of that is pretty low.
So
Is what
for
it is.
March events, they don't look at family income.
Thanks.
It's based on support needs.
Thank you.
Yeah. Everybody gets 5,500, and then once we do the assessment, that information, the applicant is then sent back to Marshall Dimes, and then they run it through their, based on the regulations they get from the government, and then they decide how much someone can receive.
My understanding is that if the family doesn't have a psychological assessment by the time that you're supposed to turn 18 and the costs are too prohibitive for a private one, the DSO pays for a ministry funded psychologist to complete the assessment, correct?
That would be a case by case. Yeah, it would be case by case. We do refer some people for a funded assessment, but we really have to look at all the options first. That's why it's really case by case, but that's why If you don't have a standard psychological assessment report signed by psychologists, apply when the person's 16. That way it really gives time to go through that process. But money, in the end, someone who can't afford it is not denied services at DSO, that's for sure. But how we get there is a case by case, on a case by case basis.
Where do you go to apply for ODSP? Because we tried online and it's the worst system ever. It just times you, it gives you like 20 minutes to do 45 forms and it times you can't get it done.
You guys help people apply for ODSP? Yeah, so Children can help. It's possible to call. And they have some in-person.
Having just completed
Yeah.
the process myself for my son, I agree that online was challenging, but in person, they were very, very helpful.
They're on Preston Street.
Oh, they're on Preston, okay.
Yeah.
You can call us and do the
Yeah.
initial assessment on the
Yes.
phone.
Yep, you can complete some steps ahead of time.
Oh, okay.
With the DSO legibility letter, it's much faster and simpler. So it's always good to check with us first. So, thank you.